the final part. Do you want to be looking down on me for this part? Go ahead and look down on me.
Pittsburgh Mental Hospital. It sucked, and I made a lot of good friends, and I am classic Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest when I go to a mental hospital. I have a lot of information in my brain, and it's all readily accessible when I'm fucking crazy as fuck, so I use it in crazy ways. There's a girl there who's having a really tough time that I tried to help, while she tried to kind of, yeah. It's a tough environment. But it was just there for a week. I had a hearing, and I kept my shit together, and I think it's probably just an indictment of that entire hospital system that I got out when I did. Because I got out, and Dad picked me up, brought me back to the basement. I had moved to a different part of the basement, about the same tent-sized room, but it was a different part of the basement, but that was where I had been, and I went back there. Stopped taking my meds, started smoking pot exclusively, and continued being crazy for a few weeks. Continued the project. I wrote a lot that I can't stand to look at. My Gmail is full of communications I made while fully crazy. And organizing a project to coincide with the government thing. I also finally recorded some things successfully. Seems a lot. My dad dropped me off at the hospital. With good cause. There were some large-scale art installations of craziness that he was dealing with before that happened. But it was the last one. He took me to the regular emergency room and he dropped me off and he told me that I was homeless now. I thought I should be homeless for this part so that I could get the benefits that homeless people get in this country. Walked away from that emergency room and he was driving through the parking lot and veered and I jumped out of the way. I felt I had to jump out of the way. I'm sure he was just running on concern and didn't actually try to hit me, but that was the experience I had. That guy just fucking driving crazily through the parking lot. And I walked away from the hospital. Again, this was, once things start shifting or something, I don't know. Once again, I was waiting for a pickup from the team. The big revelation that I wasn't crazy. I stopped by the nicest hotel in town and tried to figure out which room was already reserved for me. And a guy with a real fucked up looking face got real tough with me because it was late and I clearly didn't have a room or any money. And I apologized profusely and ran out. I went to a person who I bought drugs from sometimes, who I mistook for a kind of friend. I went and got into his car and honked the horn until he came out. And he drove me to the mental hospital. At the very least, he knew where the mental hospital was. And they had an ambulance pick me up and take me to the emergency room. And then I sat in a room and they gave me some magazines, including Highlights for Children, which I used to demonstrate just how fucking crazy I was. I was full derealization. Every single element I saw was something that it wasn't. Every event was something that it wasn't. I would go on to spend the next month in a mental hospital. I think St. Joseph's. St. Joseph? Yeah, I think so. Wherever they have their mental health facility, that's where I was. Fuck. My idea with this whole thing is to try to tell you all the bad stuff. I want to tell you the bad things so that when I do the second part of this thing, I won't be a hypocrite. I want everyone to have access to all the mean things they could say to me so that I can say some mean things. I'm sure I could tell a lengthy story about that month in that particular mental hospital. I don't know if I fucking can at this point. That last video was an hour and 19 minutes when I stopped it. I've got a finite amount of time to do the rest of this project, and the rest of the project is a lot more appealing than any of this. A guy who knew how to get things got me a pair of shoes. I didn't have any shoes. I still have those sneakers. It was a month. Here's something. You know those big round mirrored ball or hemispheres? Or I guess quarter hemispheres? Quarter spheres? They put them up in like in department stores or in hospitals, so you can see around corners. It's like just a big round mirror, so you can see what's coming around corners. A mental hospital obviously is an important safety device, so that you're not surprised by someone, or you don't surprise someone, or that sort of thing. Unfortunately, in a mental hospital, they're large mirrored globes that are hiding anything behind them, including cameras, and we all know that there's cameras behind them. Except I had seen the camera feeds they had available at the nurses' station, and I knew they weren't getting anything from those cameras, so what were those cameras for? On my first nights there, I punched one out and found out there's nothing behind it. It's just a pretty flimsy piece of plastic. I say that because the crazy is hard to fucking... There's the physical crazy, and then there's the things you've done to your own mind while your mind was physically crazy. By which I mean, after I was properly medicated and probably mentally balanced, I still believed crazy things. But it's weird. A guy came through a couple weeks into my stay, and he was fully in it, but he was talking about, you know, I said the thing about being Jack Nicholson. That's kind of how I was. That's everything that seems smart or empathetic or charismatic. It's just way up, and I'll tune it to whoever I'm talking to, because that's already something I do. But this guy was looking to me for answers, and he was talking about the cameras. And I got to be like, actually, when I was fully fucked up, I punched one of those out. There's nothing behind them. We don't have to worry about those. I had a real problem at that point with everyone who was white. White doctors, white nurses. There was one black nurse that they leaned on for fucking everything, any fucking possibly any risk was assigned to this motherfucking guy. And he was the kind of guy that was just handling it. I was using the N-word a lot around this time. And he was very gracious to be patient with whatever I was saying. There was a point where I needed to be strapped down, and they wouldn't because of insurance purposes. Start bashing the fuck out of the payphone because they wouldn't just fucking strap me down somewhere. They took me to that room. I had to wriggle into the fucking straps myself. They weren't happy about it. And they got me out of there as soon as they could. Because of insurance something. It took a while. It took a while to even accept medication. They'd had to shoot me up one night. They shot. They're doing those fucking welfare checks every fucking 10 minutes. So you try to sleep and there's a door opening every fucking 10 minutes and someone trying to get verbal confirmation. That's a fucking torture technique. They use it because their insurance can't accommodate someone killing themselves, so they have to get verbal confirmation. It's a fucking lawyer has had a hand in this mental health treatment. That's where that originates. So they were doing that fucking interrogation technique on me, and I couldn't fucking take it. These fucking bitches were so fucking loud at it. The nurse's station was right next to my room. The psychologist there was a fucking smug fucking cunt rag. He had a fucking student with him that he was talking to as though I wasn't fucking there. All these white people. A lady therapist, white as fuck. I was just mean to her. That's the worst part for me being crazy, is that crazy person has access to a lot of information and a lot of tools for fucking with people. And he doesn't know what's right. And he doesn't know what's, it's not even about right or wrong. I don't even know what. Eventually I took the medicine. One of the nurses brought in a watch that his kid had given up so that I could have a watch because they didn't have any fucking clocks, and it was driving me fucking crazy. I don't know why they add time deprivation experiments to that. I don't know why they think that's a good idea, but it's not. But I did. I got that physical, some kind of physical health back. And then it was time to discharge me, and I was a homeless person. Remember? I was a homeless person now. Except my dad had talked to a friend of his, a pastor friend of his, who ran a halfway house for mostly drug and alcohol. And he agreed to take me in, and they told me this at the mental hospital, and I looked at him and I said, I gotta tell you, I've had this entire fucking experience. I don't think that I don't know that going back to a place approved by my father is the right move. And the sort of therapist people were like, oh yeah, I understand that. And no one else will take you. You can wait around, but there's no one else to take you. And we're getting you out of the hospital. So I said, okay. And then it was going to be a week until I could move in. So they put me on a cab to... I must have gone straight to DSS. Yeah. I went straight to DSS. During this time, by the way, my dad had broke his back. He fell off his lawnmower, he broke his back. So I would call him and just make his life more fucking horrible. They took me to DSS, the Department of Social Services, where I met with someone who had a real Margaret Smith quality to the way she did her job. I was some kind of, I don't know. Again, I'm going from a hospital environment to someone who's really invested in me not cheating the government out of its hard-earned money to take care of me. Got sent to a motel for the night, and I was to report back at DSS. And I went to that motel and then started trying to turn myself into the FBI. Started trying to figure out how to turn myself into the FBI. Some cops came by for an unrelated thing. I waved them over. Asked if... Shit, what did I ask them? I know the mental hospital sent me out without medication for the night. And by the time I got to DSS the next morning, I was fully freaking out. And I had to go up to the guy who runs the fucking metal detector, the guard they had. I had to be like, man, I gotta tell you, I have a big freak out throwing stuff around if that's what it's gonna take to get some fucking attention and some help right now, but I need some fucking help. And that guy was like, all right, man, I'll call you an ambulance. It's like, okay. Yeah, I needed that ambulance. It took me back to that same emergency room where I went so crazy before. And this time I just chilled out. I think maybe I slept a little bit. I ate something. They got me the medicine I needed, and they sent me on my way back to DSS. And it was late, and they could barely help me, but they got me a motel and a bus pass, or like a token to take the bus. And I took this bus out to a different... the first motel, the guy who ran the motel, who ran it so that he could get money from DSS, he decided he didn't want me for the night because I had caused him any problems. So I had to go to a different motel, which was great because his motel was horrible, and the motel I went to was just really, really dingy, and it was a big improvement. You just meet me in the middle. That song was really big on the handheld radio. That was my only way of listening to music. There was another song that resonated more with me, but I don't care to remember it right now. So I spent a week at that motel. It was a rough week. I called my dad. He made a 40-minute trip. He was in a back brace. So like he wasn't paralyzed or anything from breaking his back, but he was in a lot of pain, and it was a lot of pain for him to drive. He came out, he took me to Aldi's, and we got groceries so that I wouldn't starve. And I eventually made it to that halfway house. And I'm still here 3 years later. Halfway to what? I'm not sure yet. It has not become apparent what this place is halfway to. I've seen it become halfway to random rooms that some people's friends have. It's been halfway to getting kicked out. And it's been halfway to finding a girl to latch onto. Those seem to be those are just some of the journeys. Also halfway to killing yourself. Been trying to fucking get the fuck out of here, and was talking to my landlord slash pastor guy about it. About trying to apply to an apartment I heard was like rent controlled or something. Like they check your income and adjust the rent. His response, oh, you know, there's a bunch of drug dealers over there. The housemate who had been missing for weeks at that point was in the shed behind the house, rotting. During that conversation about how I shouldn't find a place for myself because there might be drug dealers there. I was discouraged. I didn't apply to that place, I don't think. I'm easily discouraged from believing that things could get better. That's a character flaw. That's an indictment of me sitting here asking you to feel sorry for me or something. Like, well, it's your fault. I got a job. I did some video editing for a couple weeks, but the person who hired me was trying out the position and had no fucking clue what they were doing, and I didn't have any fucking tolerance for it. And I was still real raw. So like a month or two after I got out of the hospital. But then I got a job at the college that I dropped out of twice. First I was a salad person, and then I was a catering assistant, and then the pandemic hit. And then I was a janitor. And now I'm a janitor. This year, I have been an animator and a professional writer and a janitor. And a salad person. I tried to apply for disability. After all this stuff happened, I couldn't because I hadn't been employed for 3 years prior to going crazy. Like 3 uninterrupted years. It's 3 years later. I appealed that decision. They finally, like, there's still every 6 months or something, someone will bother me and say that there's a hearing about my disability claim. Like, I already told them I fucking gave up. They've been more slowly persistent about that than, like, I don't know, I fucking hate it. But that's my fault. Like, I didn't follow up properly. I can track that it's my fault. I just can't muster the fucking enthusiasm to give a fuck. This is why I did it this way. The way I'm feeling right now is why I'm doing it this way. Okay. So that's the story, guys. I lived for a while. I'm still living. This project is part of that. I see opportunity in this project. I don't want that to be lost, and I don't want it to be used as a simple disclaimer. I do see opportunity here. I hope there's some opportunity here, or I'm just going through this for fucking nothing. that was my story. End of part 4. Get into more in a second, okay?